Welcome, fellow explorers of the final frontier. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of one of Star Trek's most memorable species. They're greedy, they're loud, and their ears are absolutely enormous. They worship profit above all else and have turned capitalism into a literal religion. Yes, we're talking about the Ferengi. Now, you might be wondering why we should care about these big-eared merchants when Star Trek is supposed to be about noble Federation ideals. Well, here's the thing. The Ferengi are absolutely hilarious, but they're also surprisingly deep. They started as generic villains in The Next Generation, but by the time Deep Space Nine rolled around, they became some of the most complex and beloved characters in all of Trek. What makes the Ferengi so special? Three things. Their enormous lobes that can supposedly sense good business opportunities, their sacred rules of acquisition that govern every aspect of their lives, and their incredible popularity on Deep Space Nine. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why even hardcore Trekkies can't help but love these profit-obsessed aliens. History and origins. The Ferengi first appeared way back in 1987, in the Next Generation's episode, The Last Outpost. But here's the funny thing. They were originally supposed to be the new Klingons. Gene Roddenberry and the writers wanted fresh antagonists for the Enterprise crew, so they created these hyper-capitalist aliens based on stereotypes of cutthroat agents and lawyers. The problem was, nobody found them scary. At all. In fact, fans absolutely hated them. They were supposed to be menacing villains, but instead, they came across as bumbling space merchants who couldn't threaten a replicator malfunction. Season 2 head writer Maurice Hurley called them a waste of time and famously said, "Goodbye Ferengi, bring on the Borg." But here's where it gets interesting. When Deep Space Nine launched in 1993, the writers decided to give the Ferengi a second chance. Instead of trying to make them scary, they embraced what made them unique, their obsession with profit and their comedic potential. The show's co-creator Michael Piller knew that having a Ferengi on the station would provide instant humor and built-in conflict. This transformation was brilliant. Deep Space Nine took these failed villains and turned them into some of the most nuanced characters in Star Trek. They explored Ferengi culture, politics, and society in incredible detail. What started as a species that everyone wanted to forget became the heart of some of DS9's best episodes. It's one of the greatest character rehabilitations in television history. Culture and society. Now let's talk about what makes Ferengi society tick. And spoiler alert, it's all about the Latinum. Ferengi culture is built entirely around the acquisition of profit, and I mean entirely. They pray by bribing their gods. They auction off dead relatives' remains at funerals. And they've turned greed into a literal religious philosophy. At the center of everything are the sacred rules of acquisition. These aren't just business tips. They're the fundamental laws that govern Ferengi society. There are 285 of these rules, and every educated Ferengi knows them by heart. Rule number 1, once you have their money, you never give it back. Rule 10 declares that greed is eternal. And my personal favorite, Rule 34, war is good for business, though Rule 35 cleverly states peace is good for business too. But here's where Ferengi society gets really problematic. For most of their history, Ferengi women weren't allowed to wear clothes, earn profit, or even leave their homes. This extreme sexism was baked right into their culture. The thinking was that women were property, not people, and certainly not business partners. However, Deep Space Nine showed us how societies can change. Through characters like Quark's mother Ishka, we watched Ferengi culture slowly evolve. Ishka proved that women could be brilliant at business. In fact, she was the financial genius behind Grand Nagus Zek's success. Eventually, the Ferengi government realized that keeping half their population out of the economy was just bad business. By the end of DS9, Ferengi women had gained the right to wear clothes and earn profit. Turns out, equality is profitable after all. Famous Ferengi. Let's meet the Ferengi who stole our hearts, starting with the king of them all, Quark. Played brilliantly by Armin Shimmerman, Quark was DS9's resident bartender and the station's most lovable scoundrel. He ran his establishment with a perfect mix of charm and corruption, always looking for the next big score, while somehow managing to do the right thing when it really mattered. What made Quark special was his complexity. Sure, he was greedy and scheming, but he also genuinely cared about his friends and family. When push came to shove during the Dominion War, Quark chose his principles over profit, though he'd never admit it. Armin Shimmerman's performance turned what could have been a one-note character into one of Trek's most beloved antiheroes. Then there's Rom, Quark's brother, played by Max Groening-Chick. Rom was the idiot of the family, at least according to Quark. He supposedly didn't have the lobes for business, but Rom was actually a brilliant engineer who kept Quark's bar running. His character arc was incredible. He went from being a downtrodden waiter to forming DS9's first labor union, becoming a Bajoran engineer, and eventually rising to become Grand Nagus himself. Nog, Rom's son, had perhaps the most surprising journey of all. This young Ferengi became the first of his species to join Starfleet. Aaron Eisenberg played him with such heart that you believed every step of Nog's transformation, from petty criminal to decorated officer. His friendship with Jake Sisko was beautiful, and his struggles with PTSD during the Dominion War showed just how far these characters had evolved. Grand Nagus Zek, played by the wonderful Wallace Shawn, was the eccentric leader of the Ferengi Alliance. Under the influence of his lover Ishka, Quark's mother, Zek slowly reformed Ferengi society. And finally, there's Brunt, the deliciously evil FCA liquidator played by Jeffrey Combs. Brunt was Quark's nemesis, representing everything rigid and corrupt about traditional Ferengi society. Combs played him with such bureaucratic menace that you loved to hate him. Ferengi versus other species. The Ferengi had fascinating relationships with every major power in the galaxy. With the Federation, it was complicated. They respected Starfleet's principles, but found their lack of profit motive utterly baffling. Quark often served as the voice of capitalism, questioning Federation idealism, while secretly admiring their moral courage. During the Dominion War, the Ferengi played it smart by officially staying neutral. However, there were hints that they might have secretly supported the Federation alliance. After all, the Dominion had kidnapped Grand Nagus Zek's lover, and a Dominion victory would have been terrible for business. The Ferengi understood that stability and free trade required the Federation to win, even if they couldn't say so publicly. With the Klingons, the relationship was purely business, and Klingons weren't great customers. They preferred conquering to buying, which made them frustrating trading partners. The Cardassians were better before the Dominion War. They were excellent customers for weapons and supplies. The Ferengi had no problem selling to both sides of a conflict, following Rule 76. Every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies. The beauty of Ferengi diplomacy was their neutrality. As Quark once pointed out, Ferengi history contained no equivalent to human genocide or world wars. Their greed actually made them more tolerant. After all, one customer's money was as good as another's. While other species fought over ideology, the Ferengi just wanted to make deals with everyone. It was a surprisingly peaceful approach to galactic politics. Fun facts and myths. Here's where things get really interesting behind the scenes. Creating a Ferengi required incredible dedication from the actors. Armin Shimmerman spent about 3 hours in makeup every single day. The process involved full head prosthetics, fake fingernails with that distinctive blue nail polish, and those famous Ferengi teeth. Those teeth were crucial. Shimmerman insisted on wearing them, even for voice-only work on Star Trek Lower Decks, because they were essential to getting Quark's distinctive speech patterns right. The funny thing is, Shimmerman was actually grateful for the teeth, because at least he could remove them to eat, unlike Renée Auberjonois, whose Odo makeup made eating a complete mess. Speaking of challenges, Jeffrey Combs, who played Brunt, developed an amazing technique for speaking with Ferengi prosthetics. He somehow managed to make plosive sounds like B and P without his lips touching. Try saying blueberry without touching your lips together. The actors had to completely relearn how to speak and express themselves through layers of foam latex and silicone. Here's a wild story. During the Northridge earthquake in 1994, Shimmerman actually drove home in full Ferengi makeup at 4:30 in the morning to check on his family. Can you imagine seeing Quark stuck in earthquake traffic? The dedication these actors showed was incredible. They literally lived and breathed their characters for 7 years. And that distinctive blue nail polish? According to behind-the-scenes lore, there's only one nail polish company on Ferenginar, and they have a complete monopoly on the market. Of course they do. It's the most Ferengi thing imaginable. You can actually buy replica Rules of Acquisition nail polish today. Legacy and final thoughts. So there you have it, the incredible journey of the Ferengi, from failed villains to beloved icons. They started as generic bad guys that nobody took seriously, but Deep Space Nine transformed them into some of the most complex and entertaining characters in all of Star Trek. Through Quark, Rom, Nog, and the rest, we learned that even the most profit-obsessed species could grow, change, and find their own path to what really matters. The Ferengi taught us that comedy and depth aren't mutually exclusive. They showed us that capitalism taken to its logical extreme becomes absurd. But they also demonstrated that love, family, and friendship can triumph over greed. Most importantly, they proved that every species, no matter how apparently shallow, has the potential for growth and redemption. As Grand Nagus Zek once said, the line between good and evil isn't as clear as people think. The Ferengi embodied that moral complexity better than almost any other Star Trek species. They were greedy but generous, selfish but loyal, corrupt but ultimately decent. They were, in their own weird way, perfectly human. So remember Rule of Acquisition number 76. Every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies. And if that doesn't work, there's always Rule 286, which I just made up. When in doubt, make a YouTube video about it. The algorithm is eternal, and subscriber count equals profit. Thanks for watching, and may your lobes guide you to great fortune. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. After all, good content is good for business.